Finally, I get to review a Seitona. But wait, isn't an Orient worth looking at? Let's get into it. Yes, and welcome to the Mad Watch Collector Show. Today is a double whammy because we've got a Seiko and an Orient. Yeah. Now, over the last few months, I've reviewed several speed timers from Seiko, celebrated its 50th anniversary of the first speed timer back in 1969. Now, yes, I'm a bit late to the party. One of the watches I'm going to show you today is the Seitona. Yes, a 3 subdial chronograph Seiko release that has a little bit of the Rolex Daytona look to it.
Just a smidgen.
I've now got one into the Mad Studios to have a good look at, but also I've got a certain watch some reviewers are calling out there a better alternative to this Seitona if you haven't got the money for the Seitona. One watch is £590, the other one is £320. And I guess at the end of this show, I'm going to tell you whether I think the gap in the price is justified, and then I'm going to tell you which watch I think you should buy. In the past, as you know, I've championed Seiko. I've also championed Orient, making them possibly the new Seiko in terms of affordability. It's a big thank you to Francis & Gay Jewelers because they are the guys that sent these two watches in for me. They sell a huge range of watches you and I love at superb prices. It's any wonder why you'd go anywhere else to buy a watch. Are you Seiko Orient ready? Let's go. Okay, now listen, before I do show you these watches, I have to talk to you about this. Now, I don't show off too many watch strap brands, do I? But if I do, I'm showing them off because I believe in them, I use them, I own them, and think you should own them as well. Well, if you've been a fan of the channel for long enough, you will know I am a huge fan of Clockwork Republic. For anyone that wants to upgrade their Seiko sports watch, this is the company you go with. Here I've got my SKX013 on, and look how premium this is. Now, not only is the craft work of this FKM rubber so darn comfortable to wear, all the stainless steel hardware on this watch matches the finishing on your Seiko watch. Solid stainless steel end links for many of your favorite Seiko watches. I have not felt a more comfortable, more pliant, more supple rubber strap than this at an affordable price. We are talking Everest straps, rubber B straps, the ones that are only exclusively for Rolex watches, and I'm extremely proud and honoured to have Clockwork Republic as one of the Mad Watch Collector official partners. Anyway, if you want to level up your Seiko watch, check the link in the description below, tell them I sent you, and thank me later. Right, so ladies and gentlemen, I give you the SSC 813P1. Beautiful Seiko, no? Anyway, in the Orient corner, I give you, crikey, this is a big one, the RATX0203S10B. So a few reviewers out there are touting this Orient chronograph as good or better than this Seiko. Remember, there's about £270 difference, which is the price of an Orient Bambino on the Francis & Gay website. So we're not talking chump change, but is that price gap justified? So first of all, let's do looks and first impressions. The Seiko speed timer is significantly smaller and to me doesn't look like anything else Seiko does in their lineup. Whereas Orient's watch looks like a bloomin' Mako with 3 subdials been shoved in it. There's your differences already. One's a dive watch and one is a racer. I have to say though, on first impressions, I do much prefer the Seiko. It looks sleeker, more refined. I love that flat part of the tachymeter bezel and then it slopes down. That's a great touch. Also, that darkened rehold just makes you slide on into that dial. The case does remind me of a 62 mass, so we've got that good heritage there. Very decent sized crown at 3 o'clock and non-screw down pushers at 2 and 4. This Seiko does feel refined, and right off the bat, the bracelet is pretty darn good as well. The Orient, well, it does look like a watch they've already done before. Has it been been a lazy move to shove in a chronograph solar module, put the 3 subdials in, and try and rake a bit of money from these Seitonas. There are great little details, like the framed silver subdials, just to give it a little bit of a refined edge. But it has to be said, on looks, it's the Seiko for the win. Okay, next criteria, feel. And it has to go to the Seiko again. What makes the Orient feel a little bit cheap is obviously the bracelet. Hollow end links. The links are solid, however, they're quite chunky, don't feel refined at all. The clasp doesn't help in this matter either, being a big old pressed one. I mean, this is not mega cheap, £320, but if I was to own this watch, I would probably get it off this bracelet straight away, stick it on a good old rubber strap. The overall feel of the watch, it just doesn't feel expensive. Whereas the Seiko, with the solid end links, the slightly thinner links, the small non-diver's clasp, that is milled, just gives me that feeling of this is an expensive watch. Shall we do the jangly test? The Orient, the Seiko. As you can tell, the Orient is the more jingly jangly. Quick specs check! Okay, first with the Seiko, this is a 39mm watch. It's 13.5mm thick, 45.5 lug to lug, and a 20mm lug width. Whereas the Orient, which is basically a Mako, is 42.5mm in diameter, 48 lug to lug, 13mm thick, and has a 22mm lug width. So for me, the Seiko is going to wear better on my wrist. It definitely may look different on yours. Both watches are around 150 grams in weight. Both dials are protected by a sapphire glass. With the Orient, which is effectively a dive watch, we have a screw down crown and a screw down case back, which gives this watch 200 meters of water resistance. The Seiko is not a dive watch. The crown is not screw in. We do have a screw down case back, but this watch is water resistant to 100 meters. On the Seiko, the tachymeter bezel is basically a lacquered stainless steel one, and I do love that faceting almost to it, and I love how it sits around this sapphire glass. With the Orient, well, it's a diver. We've got a unidirectional 120 click stainless steel bezel with an aluminium insert with lume pip. It's very light, very spongy. You know, not Seiko spongy, but very spongy. Have a listen. Ooh. I have to say I felt much better bezel action on the Komatsu. This is adequate, it does its job, but it's not an amazing bezel. Right, let's take a look at the faces. Dials time. And yes, I gotta be honest, it's the Seiko for the win for me. Just the proportions of the subdials to the negative space on that dial. As I said, I love that sloping reholt. Both are what you would call sandwich dials. The subdials are actually the solar cells, which draw the power into the watch. Both have a little blue tint to it. Can only be seen at certain angles, but they are both there. I love an applied Seiko logo on a dial, and I also love the applied markers for the hours. With the Orient, well, it's more of a silvery white, that dial is. The reholt just goes straight down to the dial. There's no slope to it, so it does look like you're looking into more of a porthole. Do like the applied markers, and like I said, I really do appreciate the silver framing around those subdials. Really good touch. Now, I'm not a huge fan of a date complication at the best of times, and both date windows on these watches are pretty poor. With the Orient, we're not at 4:30, we're at something like 4:45. With the Seiko, we're more like we're at 4:15, 4:20. But because the solar cell sits on top of the date wheel, it's very deep down, isn't it? And on both watches, quite difficult to read. The Seiko's lume has a bit of a fauxtina tint to it, whereas the Orient has a more of a green tinge to it. The hour markers have a slight green tint to it as well, and it's not the same green as the hands.
Could you just click that like button, please? It really helps the channel. Thank you.
Right, on we come to the lume test, yeah. Now, bearing in mind that the Orient is essentially a dive watch, it should absolutely destroy what is essentially a racing watch. But out of 10, how much do these puppies glow? It's not often a Seiko gets beat in a loom battle, I tell you that. It's the win for the Orient. Now, operating these watches are pretty much identical. They both use a solar module inside. With the Seiko, there's no unscrewing of the crown, you just pop it out. One thing I really love with this Seiko module though, is that you get a battery indicator. As these watches are not mechanically driven, there's no definite snap to the start and stop of the chronograph. With the Orient, we unscrew the crown because we got 200 meters of water resistance, you know. I would actually say that operating the hands is a bit more solid than the Seiko, which I thought was a little bit surprising.
Hello.
On my 6.5-inch wrist, and yes, even though I love both watches, it's the Seiko with the win for me. It just doesn't feel chunky, and the bracelet just looks that little bit more premium. I've got to be honest, I do like that vintage style aluminium insert look, but this Seiko, they made a good one here, you know. And just like I said, the proportions of the sizes of the subdials, because they are different sizes on the Seiko, with the 6 o'clock one being the smallest, it just looks like it's been thought out a little bit better. Even though the Orient has some amazing framing to it. The Seiko's bracelet is far more comfortable, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is where a lot of the money goes, especially in Seikos. When you get your sapphire glass and you get a very decent bracelet, that's when the money goes up a bit. So there we go, the Seitona and the Orientona. Both watches that look a little bit similar and £270 different. But definitely different when you give them more of a close-up look. However, do I think that the Orient is good enough and cheap enough to make it a great alternative to this Seitona? No. I thought I was going to do this show right, and the whole basis was going to be like, wow, this Orient is a rival to this Seiko. It's £270 cheaper, and it's just as good. Well, in honesty, it's not. It's good, it's nice, but it's definitely not as good as the Seiko. The Orient looks like a bit of a money maker, trying to cash in on a bit of chronograph loveliness, and there's nothing wrong with that, is there? But having both of these watches in my hands, this is my honest opinion. If you do fancy the Seiko, but you don't have the money yet, don't buy the Orient. Keep your money. Save more money, because you will appreciate this Seiko far more than the Orient. And to be honest, I've got my eyes on the Candle version. This one. Yeah. Not this one. Not the cop-out Pogue. This one, no. Because the Pogue never looked like that. Anyone that says that's a Pogue reissue is having a laugh. Anyway, I wonder what the wife thinks. So here it is, my wife's views on these two beautiful watches. Which one did she prefer? I don't like the Orient. It looks cheap. And the dial looks like a sad ghost. I do much prefer the Seiko. If it was on someone's wrist, I would double take. Overall, I think the Orient just looks cheaply made. Cool, that's a bit of a blow for the Orient from the wife. I mean, we are talking £320. But it's nice to have her agree with me once in a while, isn't it, eh? It's a big thank you to Francis & Gay Jewellers for sending these watches to me. They will be shipped back pronto. And also, don't forget, Clockwork Republic straps. Take a look at the website. You will thank me later. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you want a bit more of the Mad Watch Collector, click there and join. But if I've got you for a few more minutes, why don't you click this lovely one? Haha! This is my Monet. Basically, this is my Monet. This is my masterpiece. Yeah. Took me ages. So do me a favor and click it. Click it. Click it!